And Happy New Year, Cuse Nation, and welcome to the Upstate Orange podcast on FingerLakes1.tv and YouTube. We're coming at you live from inside the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. It's Sunday, January 4th, 2015, and tonight we'll be talking about Syracuse's 2 wins this week against Cornell and VPI. A look at the road ahead for the Orange, a great interview with one of Coach Boeheim's childhood friends from Lyons, New York, and much more. I'm Jim Sinacropi, and my co-host Matt Verkey and the Professor Brad Connor are standing by to help us talk all about it. The Upstate Orange podcast is brought to you by Generations Bank with locations in Auburn, Farmington, Geneva, Phelps, Seneca Falls, Union Springs, and Waterloo. Be sure to check out their mobile banking app or visit them online at mygenbank.com. And by Midday, Miris, and Ricky, your hometown personal injury attorneys. If you've been injured and deserve compensation, call the Finger Lakes Personal Injury Hotline at 315-568-0911 or visit their website at middaymirisricky.com. Well, good evening, Verk. How you doing tonight?
Good, Jim.
And Brad, how are you doing tonight?
All right. Very good.
Looking forward to talk about the games this week. Probably going to talk a little bit more about that game against VPI rather than Cornell. So let's get right to it with our big 5 questions. Question number 1, what happened in the second half at Blacksburg on Saturday? Brad, what happened? You got the answers? It was a meltdown, right?
I don't know. This team needs, it comes down to leadership again, and when it started to get away from them, it didn't seem like there was anybody that really stepped up to kind of stem the tide, and they just kept chipping away, and they finally got the ship righted, but it was closer than it should have been.
And Verk, I know that it was very frustrating to watch. We were texting a little bit during the game, and complete meltdown by the Orange. I mean, we looked so great in the first half. We thought finally clicking on both ends. For as good as they were in the first half, they were just as bad in the second half.
Yeah, I agree, and I wasn't impressed at all watching Virginia Tech. I thought we were just so much bigger than them and a little bit more athletic, and we were playing defense finally, and everything was going right. We're knocking down shots. We're doing everything so well. Second half, Virginia Tech, okay, yeah, I know they're going to make a little bit of a run, but we're up, 18 or 19 at halftime. Okay, cut it to 12, 11, 10. Then I thought we'd bounce it back up, but Virginia Tech made their run, and, all of a sudden nobody on Syracuse wanted to take a shot. We couldn't get the ball to Christmas anymore. We're giving up 3-pointers. We're missing free throws, and next thing you know, Virginia Tech has a 3-pointer to win it, right in front of your eyes.
And, I think it all comes down to the defense. I think even in the first half, they weren't really getting out on the shooters quite as good as you'd like them to. But in the second half, really not getting out there. It's just, like they can't sustain a defensive effort for any longer than 5 or 6 minutes, this team. And then on the offensive side of the ball, it's just like they totally go into a shell, and guys who were making shots before aren't making them. Joseph is fumbling the ball away. And you mentioned they just can't get the ball to Christmas, who really should have had maybe 40 points that game. Virginia Tech's leading rebounder was out, too, on top of it. So This was a Virginia Tech team predicted to finish near the bottom of the ACC without one of their best players.
Yeah, go
ahead, Brad.
I thought, to be fair, I think Virginia Tech made some nice adjustments at halftime. I think they attacked the zone a little bit better in the second half, a little more, inside-out kind of game. First half, they were completely stymied by the zone, so give them a little bit of credit. But it didn't seem like Syracuse made any adjustments to the adjustments, where Virginia Tech changed a little bit of what they were doing. Boeheim prides himself on being able to, tweak a zone, adjust the zone in circumstances, and it didn't seem like they really changed up what they were doing on defense. And, like you said, not getting out on the shooters. And, on offense, it just seemed they were very stagnant. In the first half, they were moving the ball great. A lot of different looks, different ways to attack it. In the second half, they passed it around a lot. It just didn't seem like they were very comfortable kind of going inside and attacking Virginia Tech zone, and it just seemed like kind of Virginia Tech dictated the pace of play in the second half.
Yeah, I agree, but I think Tech did a better job. They started penetrating that zone a little bit, but I don't know. To me, it's just to give up a 19-point lead like that. It's unacceptable, really. And it's not like we're not playing Kentucky. We're playing Virginia Tech. Come on. I mean, I don't know. I just I don't get it. I think Buzz Williams worked up more of a sweat than Chris McCullough that second half, too.
Yeah, talk about second half meltdowns. Now, Brad said it best. He said, we let Virginia Tech dictate the tempo. And when you're saying that about your team, you know you're in a little bit of trouble. I mean, Virginia Tech should never dictate the tempo against us. When they were home or road game, you know, which, by the way, it's not a difficult place to play. It's half full.
It's like 2,000 people there.
We're up 19 points. I mean, it was just kind of sad. But, yeah, what about Buzz Williams, man? He went crazy. Now, Virk, I know you're a big fan, but my thing is that his team just came back and erased pretty much a 19-point deficit, and he is losing his mind on the sideline. Just his face looks like it's going to explode. He's got to cover his mouth because he's probably, swearing every other word. And I just don't see. And it's after that they kind of reverted and had their worst stretch of the half. I don't know.
Yeah, I think he took it to a new extreme in that game. But he's a fiery coach, and his teams usually play very hard. And he was pumped up. They made a nice second half comeback. He thought he was going to steal a win there possibly. And when what's his name fouled out, he really didn't like that at all. That guy committed the foul, and he was saying, I told you not to foul. Right. With a couple.
It's got to be frustrating
in there, but he gives it to his players. But they play hard for him, so I think they respond well to him.
Well, thank goodness we got the win there. It was close, and at the end of the day, Virginia Tech had a wide-open three-point shot to win the game. And so not only did we miss the free throws, but we couldn't close out on that shooter in the corner. I mean, that shot could have easily gone in, and we could have lost the game. And
that almost reminded me of like Villanova when the guard penetrated and kicked it out for a couple threes there late in the Villanova game. I mean, they got to, I don't know.
Keep your head. You got to keep your head.
Two guys went to him, and they didn't do anything special. The guy dribbled down, threw it to the guy in the corner, and he shot a wide-open three.
Well, I guess.
And guys too is the free throw shooting down the stretch was abominable. I mean, they're trading 1 point for 2 or 3 every possession. I mean, they were making 1 or 2 practically every possession, and even in some cases 0 for 2. I mean, Patterson at the end. I mean, he's got to be able to shoot the basketball, but I haven't seen anything from him as far as being able to shoot the ball. And I would put him as far away from trying to receive an inbounds pass as anybody. and Cooney's off in the corner being double teamed. He set a screen for him, free him up. He's one of the best free throw shooters in the league. Instead, you get it in Ron Patterson's hands. He's an awful free throw shooter, apparently.
And Benajay's a seasoned 50% free throw shooter, which was about what he hit in that game.
Yeah, hard to believe. Well, let's move ahead to question 2. You mentioned Patterson, Brad. Is Ron Patterson maybe the answer to our point guard woes? I mean, not totally taking over for Joseph, but certainly it seems like when he was on the court, especially in the first half, things seem to move a little better. I feel okay with him with the ball. I feel better actually with him with the ball than Joseph. But you think Patterson could be the answer at point guard? Maybe split some time this season with Joseph?
Yeah, I think he's steadier with the ball. I like the ball in his hands. I just don't want him shooting ever. I don't think anybody's got any confidence when the ball goes up out of his hands.
He can take it.
He can get to the rim
reasonably
well, but, man, I mean, he's shooting 15% for the season from three-point land. I mean, that's crazy.
I'd like to see a shooting contest between him and Joseph, because at least Patterson has the reputation of being a shooter. So when he shoots it, I think, all right, he's going to get hot. He's going to hit a couple here. He never does, except against Colgate or Cornell or something.
It was an exhibition game, actually,
or an exhibition game.
Yeah.
But he hit some threes against Colgate. So it's and when Joseph shoots, I know it's not going in. When Patterson shoots, I kind of have a hope maybe. But I think Patterson does a pretty nice job of getting in the lane. He makes some nice passes. He throws some nice alley-oop passes in the games that he's been in there. He's a good defender. And I just feel more comfortable when he's out there, to tell you the truth. And especially anytime somebody plays Syracuse in the zone, I just think Patterson should be out there. But I don't know. I'm just not a big Joseph fan right now, so I kind of like seeing Patterson in there a little bit more.
Well, we're kind of handcuffed in options there, and he seems like the only one, unless you're going to move a Benajay over up to run the point, which we've done, or maybe let's let Trevor Cooney share a little bit. So I think I'd like to see more Patterson. But we've been saying that since the beginning. Even with some of his faults, we want to see him play more.
And, I think they can do it by committee. When Joseph's in, they get the rebound. They always try to get it right to him. But, get it to Cooney, Benajay, or Patterson, or Joseph. Just let him bring it up. Whoever's open, throw it to him. And, it's not like the point guard's got to bring it up every time. You see Benajay bringing up 3/4 of the time anyway when Joseph's in for some reason. So
yeah, I can remember a couple years ago when I think it was Brandon Trish was on the team, and maybe it was with Scoop was there, but Boeheim said something in one of his press conferences to the effect of, point guard's just a title. There's no real point. Nobody's really a point guard, or who knows? He may have just been saying that to suit his needs for that particular team. But let's move ahead to question number 3, and that is Tyler Roberson ready to break out? Every year we have a player or two that go from freshman to sophomore year that kind of break out and flourish, and it seems like Roberson's getting there. I mean, geez, let's look at the numbers against Cornell.
Not much.
Roberson had 4 points and 5 rebounds in 22 minutes, but then against Virginia Tech, he had a big rebound in game 17, 11 points, 4 of 7 shooting, 3 of 4 from the free throw line. And, I sometimes when I look at Roberson in there, I get him confused with Christmas. He's a pretty big sophomore, pretty filled out and developed, and it's just time for him to kind of, I feel like he could just take over some of these games. He's already clearing the glass pretty well.
He seems like he's got the ability. He's a pretty good jump shooter. He just, when he misses, it's always short, it seems like. But he made a big one there when they got down and Cooney penetrated and kicked it to him. When I think it was a 3-point game at the time, he pushed it to 5. But there's games he was relentless on the boards. This is the second time he's had a big rebounding game this year. He's a super athlete. I like him finishing around the basket in general.
He also played 30 minutes, which is nice.
Because McCullough isn't doing anything, so
Yeah.
it seems like he's starting to actually. I like seeing him out there as opposed to McCullough right now.
Yeah, I guess as a sub. Brad, first, what about Tyler Roberson? What do you think? Is he breaking out?
Yeah, I agree. I love seeing him out there. I mean, he's active. I mean, this team needs any Syracuse team needs rebounding support because it's, as we all know, it's tough to get rebounds out of the zone, and he's just very active. He attacks the glass, and like Burke said, he's relentless. I mean, he goes after it. And there's some games where he's not as motivated rebounding. I mean, we saw it Saturday where he really was. Cornell, I don't think he was as sort of driven for it. And he's had, I think, 3 double-doubles this season, which is great. I need to see it a little bit more. I mean, the consistency, I think, is where we probably need to see improvement from Tyler Roberson. But I'd rather see him out there than McCullough right now. McCullough is he's just going through the motions, and at least Roberson's bringing some high energy and he can extend his game. And it's funny, Burke, you said that when he on the jump shot he misses short. I said the exact same thing on Saturday.
It's unbelievable.
Like if I can't tell who's shooting it, if it's Roberson or if it's Christmas, if it's short, I know it was Roberson that shot it because that's his fault, I guess. But he doesn't have a bad shot, and he can extend to probably 15 feet. So I think he brings a lot, and this team just needs consistent rebounding, and I think Roberson's the best answer beyond Christmas for that.
Yeah, I think he's had as many rebounds as anybody's ever had. Bai Musikita had a huge game, I think, last year where he had 19, 20 rebounds, but Roberson's done it a few times. But before we get to question 4, how about McCullough? Personally, I think that this is a product of Boeheim just kind of breaking him in like a wild horse. He comes in thinking he's going to be a lottery pick. Boeheim can sense that obviously he's not good enough to be that, and so he's kind of showing him the way he does. He treats different players, a little differently, and I just think that he's kind of breaking him down a little bit to build him back up. At least I hope, because McCullough is a non-factor out there. He can't finish. The only thing that he really can do is make little foul line jumpers, which are nice, and it looks great when he does it. But how about finish at the rim?
He looks like a totally different player from the first 5 or 6 games. Early on we're saying he was the one bright spot of this team, actually.
Yeah.
He played really well early on, but you're right. Lately, he's not finishing. He's got that great length, and, he's a pretty good athlete, and he's just not finishing against smaller guys. Even against, Cornell and Colgate, he struggled. And that's, 4 or 5 points against those guys is ridiculous for his athleticism. He should be, he should walk into a double-double against those teams.
And imagine him next year in the NBA going up against, any NBA caliber players. It's it is kind of laughable to think of him as a lottery pick, but
he does. Every once in a while he'll get some great. He'll get up and get some good rebounds, and he makes a couple nice plays here and there. But just, he's really, really, really struggled in the last 5 or 6 games.
And we counted on McCullough, Brad, being a one and done type player who is going to lead this team in scoring and maybe lead the team in rebounding, and that's not the case. And so now this team is kind of lost, trying to find out who that leader is going to be, offensively especially. And do you think that McCullough can turn it around, or is this what we got for the season with McCullough?
I think he can turn it around. I think he's going through a bit of a mental kind of block of, it's a slump, and guys go through it, and, you hope he shakes it off sooner rather than later. It seems like every game we're kind of willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. Okay, see if he breaks it out, and he doesn't. I mean, I got his stats in front of me, guys. The first 8 games he shot double figures in field goal attempts more than half of his games, and he had double figures in every game. Since then, since Louisiana Tech game, he hasn't shot more than 6 shots in a game. And he shot twice yesterday, 4 times against Cornell, 3 times against Long Beach. I mean, he should be getting that many just putbacks, that many field goal attempts just on putbacks. And I don't know. It just seems like he's drifting a little bit. And he's even come out and said in interviews that he knows his energy level's not where it needs to be, and he's going to play harder. And every time I hear that, I think great, and then I don't see it. So I don't know what the issue is, but you hope that it's just a temporary thing, and he can get his head right and give us positive production, because I think he's the answer more than Roberson. I think offensively, I think defensively, Roberson is probably will bring more in terms of getting to the right spot in the zone, being able to rebound. But I think McCullough is just pure potential is going to be able to bring a lot more offense and a lot more potential for double figure scoring than probably Roberson does.
I think also, it's probably the first time in his life that somebody's told him, hey, like when Bayham said, when he went in the whole lottery pick stuff, and somebody actually get on him a little bit, and maybe he got a little down on himself and started to doubt himself a little bit, and
I think Bayham is breaking him down. I really do. I really believe that. We've seen him do it before, and we kind of disagree with some of his methods, but who has more experience with dealing with these kind of guys than Coach Boeheim? Moving ahead to question number 4, is Michael Benajay becoming the leader of this team? And does he need to be the leader of this team? Is he the one? I mean, every team needs a leader. We can go back over the past 30 seasons of Syracuse basketball and pick the one guy who was counted on to be the leader. Last year it was C.J. Fair, for example. The year before it was who was it the year before? Michael Carter Williams.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you think, Brad? Is Benajay that guy? Because he's a perfect example of that microcosm of that Virginia Tech game. He was incredible, in the first half. He's starting to hit 3-pointers, and then second half, when we need a leadership type of guy to kind of stop that run and the bleeding, I don't think he was up to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good question. I think this team, at least in the last several games, this team goes as Benajay goes. When he's active, when he's penetrating, when he's making shots, I think this team he's the engine that pushes it. When he's not, when he's missing shots, or when Boeheim set him on the bench for whatever reason, that's when this team struggles. I mean, you can really just point to specific situations where, when he's on, this team does well. Villanova game, played great in the Villanova game, and to be fair, guys, that could be one of the best games this team's played all year, even though they lost.
They gave it away.
Top 10 team on the road. He had a great game that day.
Seton Hall beat Villanova this week. Seton Hall handed Villanova their first loss. Should have been us.
Right.
What do you think about?
Yeah, I mean that was a good game that Syracuse played, and he was the guy that really drove that. And you pointed to the first half of the Virginia Tech game. He was the best player on the floor in that first half, and they were up by 19. Second half, he kind of drifted a little bit, didn't get his shots, wasn't as active, and that's where he struggled. So yeah, I think whether he is or isn't the leader now, he is the engine, right? He's the force that this team kind of needs to rally behind, because you can't rally behind a center. He can't create his own shots. He's got to he needs help. Cooney is as much as he's improved his kind of all-around game, I really don't think that he's that guy as much as Benajay has been, at least so far.
Well, Vert, any comments on Benajay?
I think he I hope he becomes a leader. He's a guy who, it seems like when he's playing well, it gives him that other scoring option. He does a lot of things really well. Just at times, like Brad was saying, he tends to disappear, and I think the team looks to him a little bit to be a leader. And I think Cooney tries to assume that role, but he does so many crazy things during the game that I think when Cooney's hitting shots, the team kind of feeds off that, so that kind of helps. But Cooney gets a little erratic at times, so I don't know if he can be that true leader that everybody looks to.
Well, let's move ahead to question number 5. And, we haven't mentioned Trevor Cooney's name so far. And he's usually one of the guys we talk about the most on the show. Are we done worrying about Cooney? Like, is Cooney kind of established himself now as a reliable leadership type of player? Because I think he has. Feel a lot better about his taking shots than I did a month ago.
I'm not sold on him yet. He had a nice game the other night, 18 points, but he took 21 shots. 6 for 21, 4 for 13 from the 3. I mean, I don't know. That's not that great to me.
Well, it's a second half thing too. First half was pretty good. Second half was terrible. It's just like the rest of the team.
He's a guy, when he's open, he's gonna knock him down occasionally, but he drives to the basket and he throws it up off the backboard, and he gets out of control sometimes. Still, he's just, the consistency's not there for me. I know he's had a nice 4 or 5 game stretch here shooting. He struggled against Tech, but coming in he was shooting 50% over the last 4 or 5 games. But he's coming along. He's making some nice strides, but I'm not sold on him that he's the future leader of this team.
What do you think, Brad? Are you more comfortable with Cooney?
I am. I think as he's evolved to being less of a one-dimensional three-point shooter and developed more of an all-around game, I think it makes him a more credible threat. It makes him a lot more, I think, valuable to this team. And we've seen that. It's not to the degree that I think he could. I still think there are times where he is satisfied just coming off screens and trying to hit a 3, and if he's not there, then going back down and coming off another screen, low screen. I mean, I think that's where kind of his bread and butter is. But I'd like to see him slash a little bit more, backdoor cuts, things like that we've seen glimpses of. I think we can see more of that. I think he's between he and Christmas, they're the most consistent scorers, and I wouldn't say that Cooney's shooting 38% on the year, so I wouldn't say he's the most consistent shooter, but he's been in double figures all but I think 3 or 4 games this season. So that's from a pure output perspective, I think he's as reliable as we've got, other than probably Christmas. But he can get better, and I think he will. I'm not sold as him being a superstar quite yet, but he's trending in a positive way, I'd say.
Yeah, I'm more and more comfortable with him, but you still see those old flashes. But looking ahead at the schedule, on Wednesday night of this week, we're going at Georgia Tech, 7 o'clock on ESPNU. It's a must-win type of game for this team that's kind of up against it early. Sunday, we're back in the Dome, 8 o'clock game against Florida State, which, Brad, I guess I should have talked to you this before we went on, but what I'm thinking about next week is that we kind of go on at 10:30 and do a shortened episode, maybe a half-hour episode right after that Florida State game, about 10:30. Does that work for you?
Yep.
All righty. So you can count on that, 10:30 next week, Sunday, January 11th, after the Florida State game, a little special post-game edition of Upstate Orange. And then the following Tuesday, it's Wake Forest in the Dome at 8 o'clock on the ACC network. And then Saturday at Clemson at 4 o'clock. So, it's kind of crazy, man. We're going down to Georgia Tech, back home to play Florida State, down to play Wake Forest, or playing Wake Forest in the Dome, and then down to South Carolina to play Clemson. It's just, the traveling in the ACC is a little different. Going to to South Carolina and Georgia is certainly more difficult than going to Pittsburgh and Connecticut, if you know what I mean. But just one of the realities of life in the ACC. So we're going to step aside for about 60 seconds, hear from our sponsors. But when we come back, this week's Orange Trivia on another edition of Connor's Corner.
Guidance and partnership through every step of the journey. Welcome to Generations Bank.
The Newark Pilots. See tomorrow's Major League stars today. For more information, go to newarkpilots.com.
Call the Finger Lakes Personal Injury Hotline at 315-568-0911. That's 315-568-0911. Madej, Maris, and Ricky, your hometown personal injury attorneys. And welcome back to the Upstate Orange podcast on FingerLakes1.tv and YouTube. Remember to subscribe to the show on YouTube. You can click the red box right about there on your screen if you're watching us on YouTube, or you can go directly to our channel, fingerlakes1.com channel on YouTube, subscribe on iTunes. We're on Stitcher.com. We're online at podcast.fingerlakes1.com/upstatehoops. Well, Brad, this is a part of the show where you ask us trivia questions. It's one of my favorite times of the week where I get to sit back and kind of just play the game. So what do you got for us this week?
Well, we just started the ACC slate for this year, and Jim, we know how you love the ACC so much, so we thought we'd ask an ACC-related question.
Okay.
I may have asked this one before, but even if I did, I want to see how well you guys retain the information. So tell me, out of the 14 other ACC schools, who Syracuse has the most victories against in their history?
Against ACC schools. Well, let's see. You got to think it would be either Pittsburgh or Boston College, right? I'm going to go right off the bat with Boston College. That's my guess.
I'm going to go with Pittsburgh.
Mark, you're correct. Pittsburgh is first on this list.
Well, they both entered the Big East at the same time, right? I know BC was a 1-year member. Pitt was like a 3-year member, 3 years after the inception.
But BC left the Big East a lot earlier.
Oh, yeah, good point. I didn't even think of that.
That was my thought.
Yeah.
Although they probably, I'm sure their winning percentage against BC is a lot higher than Pitt. I just figured they played Pitt a lot more.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that was exactly the rationale. So Syracuse has beaten Pitt 65 times out of 104 games. They've beaten Boston College 41 times out of 65 games. So they played Pitt almost 40 more times than BC. So that probably owes itself more than just the fact that BC left the Big East early. I mean, I think if you traced it to even before the Big East days, it looked like they played Pitt more than Boston College just based on the pure number of times they played. 104 times versus 65 times. So
sure.
Pitt's first, BC second. Who would be third?
Geez, I don't know if it would be one of the other former Big East teams like Miami or Virginia Tech. I mean, I almost...
Louisville.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, Louisville counts this year. We did play Louisville quite a bit out of conference before they were even in the Big East, where we probably played Miami or Virginia Tech a lot less, like in the pre-Big East days. So I think I agree with you there. It probably is Louisville, but, I'm not real confident with that guess.
Louisville is incorrect, and you guys haven't even suggested this team that's third.
Maryland's not in the ACC anymore. I would have guessed Maryland. You got going even further south. We hardly ever played Duke.
Duke, Carolina, Wake Forest, Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I see those as teams that
Virginia
we've all
Tech?
played. He said we haven't even mentioned them, so it's not Virginia Tech or Miami
did
either.
you-
It's we played North Carolina, Duke, smattering at times over the years. Whether it's in the NCAA tournament or the, I almost want to say North Carolina because I know we had a home and home with them in the '80s, and we played them in Springfield, Massachusetts one year. We
Yeah.
played them in the NCAA tournament twice.
Maybe North Carolina.
Yeah. UNC.
North Carolina, no.
Wow. And NC State's a team that we played a few times. Couple.
It's a former Big East school that you haven't named.
Oh, geez, what are we forgetting about, Burke?
It's not Miami, Pitt,
Or Virginia Tech, or
Virginia
Boston
Tech,
College, or
Boston
Louisville.
College, Louisville.
Geez, now we're drawing a blank on this obvious answer. What former Big East teams are in the ACC? Come on. Just give it to us, Brad.
Don't think about football.
What, a basketball? Oh, Notre Dame, of course. Notre Dame.
Exactly. Notre Dame. Syracuse has beaten Notre Dame 26 times in their history. I guess 19 losses. So they played Notre Dame 45 times.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you got Pitt. They played 104 times. They've beaten 65 times. Boston College have beaten 41 times. Notre Dame have beaten 26 times. Fourth on this list. You guys have said it. We haven't offered it as an answer yet. Miami is 16 times Syracuse has beaten Miami. And then Louisville, they've beaten 7 times. 7 times is all Syracuse has beaten Louisville in the history of the program.
How many times have they beaten us?
15.
Oh, geez. I guess that was our subject of an article in the Post-Standard about Patino versus Boeheim. But when you hear it like that, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Of course, it wasn't always
It goes
Patino.
back. I mean, they played the Final Four one year. They played that game that when we talked about last week. That was the second or third game that Boeheim coached at Syracuse, and he actually beat Louisville. But yeah, they've.
I remember losing to them on a Pearl Washington team in Louisville, back when Louisville, I think, was in the Metro Conference. But Denny Crum was the coach, and Purvis Ellison was on that team too, I think. And we lost.
So I'll ask you, which ACC school has Syracuse beaten the fewest times?
Beaten the fewest times, huh?
How about Duke?
Incorrect. Syracuse has beaten Duke 3 times. They've
Oh,
split
so they
3-3 against Duke.
We've beaten North Carolina more than 3 times.
Somebody
We've
must not
beaten
play.
NC
Carolina
State.
has split 4-4.
We never, ever, ever, ever play Wake Forest, so I'm going to guess Wake Forest.
Syracuse got 2 wins against Wake Forest. One last season, and there was one in I think it was a preseason NIT back in 4 or 5 or
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that's probably it, right?
But that is not. So there's a team that's beaten fewer times than that.
Oh man, it's not. I know it's not North Carolina. I know it's not NC State.
Georgia Tech?
It could be. It could be. We lost to him. Mark Price knocked Pearl out of the NCAA tournament in Pearl's sophomore year. But we killed him in the Dome a few years ago, and we beat him in Georgia Tech in a home and home. I'm not going to guess Georgia Tech, Brad. It's not Georgia Tech, right?
Not Georgia Tech. Syracuse beat Georgia Tech twice.
Okay.
Clemson.
Oh, it could be. They beat us in the NIT, and then we beat them last year once. Yeah, why not?
That's correct.
Good call.
One time. Syracuse beat Clemson last year for the first time in their history.
And how many times have Clemson got the better of us?
Twice.
Once in the NIT Final Four.
I don't know when the other time was.
It's probably like 1976 or something like that.
Who knows?
Maybe earlier.
I can look at that too. I got the media guide up, and that's where I got this question from. If you guys get a minute, check out the media guide. You go online, go to Syracuse.com for the Syracuse basketball website.
Yeah.
I got the cover of the media guide just has a picture of Coach Boeheim just scowling. It was obvious that that's exactly what they were just trying to do, is just put a picture of him scowling. Like, it's not flattering at all. It's just, hey, this is what we're about. Deal with it.
Yeah.
It's funny. I suggest you guys look at it.
Well, I'll make a point to check that out. That all the trivia you got for us tonight, Brad?
That's all I have this evening.
No, that's good stuff. I mean, it really forces you to kind of think about some of these new conference teams in the history, and that there isn't much.
Right. It makes you really think of the non-history. You missed the Villanovas and Georgetowns and Seton Halls and Providences, obviously. But we're going to make some new history, I guess.
Yeah, I'm right at the point of the Bleeding Orange book now. It's been slow going for me, but I did get a little bit earlier today a chance to read, and I'm at the point now where he kind of talks about the coaches that were part of the original Big East and what the conference meetings were like and stuff, and it really is amazing. It was just amazing. It'll never be replicated. Even
it struck me as it was more of a fraternity then.
Yeah,
they hated each other, but they were still brothers, and this thing now is just more like a business.
Well, speaking of business, let's get down to business with the list segment. For this one, I was thinking, some of these guys, and I guess it was Trevor Cooney that got me thinking about it, was, okay, I'm going to look inside my crystal ball and fast forward to senior night at the Dome for Trevor Cooney. How's he going to be received? I'm going to say that he's going to be received as with a lot of accolades, really a lot of appreciation. Got a lot of work to do between now and then, but again, I think he's kind of trending that way. What do you guys foresee 2 years from now when Trevor Cooney's announced on senior night? Is he going to get a Jerry McNamara or even a CJ Fair type of reception, or is it going to be more like a I'm trying to think of some guys who, without really, offending anybody who may be watching, but is he going to be more like a Alan Griffin, maybe?
For Trevor?
Yeah, Cooney.
I don't think he's in that category with Jerry Mack. I mean, you're talking national championship,
Yeah, but CJ didn't win the national championship, but he got a Final Four. But is he like under CJ in terms of how much the fans?
Way under.
Way under. Okay.
Trevor Cooney's a typical SU player. Like, he's one of 500 guys.
Okay.
To me,
I guess that's kind of what I'm asking. What do you think, Brad?
I think he'll be remembered pretty well. I think that he'll be received pretty well. Comparing it to Jerry McNamara is silly. I mean, he's not going to bring 43 buses of people up from Wilmington, Delaware to come to that final game. Jerry McNamara was a legend both in Syracuse and in Scranton, and I don't think Trevor Cooney will ever approach that. But yeah, I think he's a 4-year guy who played decent minutes as a freshman and started for 3 years. So I think, just on the basis of that, I think there'll be a lot of fond memories. It's sort of like Scoop, right? Where you had fond memories, but you had some frustration, and then you kind of sit back and think it probably could have been better. And that's probably where we'll land on Trevor Cooney a year and a half from now. But
a lot can happen in a year and a half.
Got room to grow.
Yeah. Okay.
I think a lot depends on if he, say they missed the tournament this year, and next year he doesn't start. They bring in a freshman who starts.
Boeheim's no way he doesn't start.
There's a lot to be determined in his career, but
yeah.
If he misses the tournament this year, that's going to be, that's been unheard of the last, what's it been? It's been a while since they missed the tournament. So
Johnny Flynn.
Yeah,
team.
So not too long, but
no, that was 7-8 years ago. At least.
I'm just saying in the recent success, he's kind of looked at as he was supposed to be the next, big scorer, I guess, or whatever for us, and he hasn't lived up to that. But he's going to have a good career. I just think a lot's to be determined here.
All right, well, let's go down the list and talk about Michael Benajay, a guy who came as a transfer. End of next season, he'll be sitting next to Trevor Cooney. How is he going to be received?
It's a tough one.
It is tough because there's a lot to go. So part of this, I guess, is predicting how you think the rest of their career is going to play out.
I think he's going to finish his career well. I think he's going to be a 13, 14 points a game scorer next year. He seems to have made good strides this year, and next year I think he can be a a solid player for us, for another year.
Brad Benijay, who you like in his senior night too?
That's a tough one because he was a transfer, so he's not a guy that we've known and grown to appreciate over the course of 4 years. He's got a little less history with the fans, and so I think for that reason, probably people would remember Cooney a bit more intimately, I guess you could say, than Benijay. But a lot of it depends on if he really becomes the real go-to guy next season, and he will be the senior that, as we were talking about, he could be the leader of this team for the duration of this season, really the go-to guy, and from in the backcourt. And if he truly becomes that guy next season, then I think he's got a real opportunity to be remembered very, very favorably by this program, especially if they can get back to top 10, 15, maybe not this season, but next season.
Yeah. I think it's a little too early to talk like this about Caleb Joseph. I don't want to go that far into the future, and same thing with McCullough. I mean, there's a chance he doesn't have a senior night, That's actually an interesting question, Is McCullough going to be here 4 years from now? In the beginning of the year, we thought no way, but now I guess there's a chance.
Dante Green.
Yeah, well, yeah, Dante produced at least points his freshman year, but he didn't deliver on the dynasty that they were promising, all those years. How about I don't want to run through the whole roster here. How about Chinoso Aboko? Is he going to elevate himself to the type of Bai Musakita reception on his senior night? Or is he going to be more of a Billy Seelick?
Billy Seelick.
Worked down on Chinoso. I don't know why
he's terrible.
He doesn't play more. But what was Baikita doing that Aboko can't do? I guess we don't know because I haven't seen enough of him. But I guess I'd like to see him defensively and rebounding, and we just don't. And we probably aren't gonna the rest of this year. Next year's into the new year.
I just think Boeheim's tightened that rotation so tightly now that if he's not in the top 7, he's not playing at all. And with the guys they've got coming in, I don't know if he cracks that top 7 next season.
What about B.J. Johnson? You think BJ will be here next year? You think he's the guy that transfers?
Yeah.
That's a bold prediction. Now here was a guy we were getting excited about a few weeks ago, and now he disappears.
If he's not playing this year, where does he fit in next year? We have one senior.
That's exactly what I was thinking. And we got 5.
And say somehow McCullough goes pro. He doesn't play the 4. He's a 3. We were loaded. That's the one position we got. We got two wing guys coming in. We got Benijay back. It's.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't dislike B.J. Johnson either. Like I always thought he had some skills and stuff, but he's deep on the bench now. He didn't see a second the other night, did he, against Tech?
No.
I was gonna say.
B.J. Johnson had 9 minutes against Cornell. He shot one 3-pointer and missed it, and missed 1 free throw. He had 2 assists, 1 steal, and then 0 minutes against VPI. Last one, guys. Dwan Coleman. His senior night. When's it going to come? They're going to seek maybe a red shirt this year for him. Is he ever going to be a part of, a serious part of one of these Syracuse teams over the next few years? Or, it's impossible to guess. We're not doctors.
So what year is he? Last year he was a freshman or sophomore? What was it?
This was his now I'm getting confused with him. This would be his junior year.
Okay.
But if he redshirts, he'll come back next year as a junior. He'll probably be about 33 years old. Or no, he'll be 21, 22-year-old junior probably.
I don't know. He's unless he can make great strides, I think he can be a role player for the Syracuse team. But
if he's healthy, he could be a dominant force inside.
Yeah.
But you think he's not?
I don't know. Maybe he hasn't been healthy in his career, but he hasn't really done much in 2 years.
No.
I'd have a hard time thinking after the injury history he's had that he could go much more than 20 minutes a night ever again.
I agree, and when he was out there, he didn't do a whole lot, and he was a big recruit, McDonald's All-American, from the Syracuse area, but maybe he gets healthy, and but he's another guy. When he comes back next year and McCullough stays, unless he can play the 5, he's gonna have trouble seeing the court. We're bringing in another good center, another good power forward. I mean, it's gonna be tough next year for guys to get playing time if some of these freshmen are as good as advertised.
Yeah, that's true. And if Thomas Bryant commits, that would be another blow to Coleman's chances. But certainly, I think he can come back, and if he can make it to that point to his senior year, if he contributes on any level, I think the reception will be very fond for Coleman. I think the Syracuse fan base is smart and sympathetic, and really, for the most part, appreciates a lot of the kids on Syracuse's team. That might not be the case of all players, probably not the case of a Louis McCroskey or a Deshaun Williams, but a DeJuan Coleman, I think that we can all get behind. So let's move it ahead to 2 for the road a little bit earlier tonight than usual because we have a special treat for you. Finger Lakes One Sports was in the Atwood Gymnasium in Lyons, New York. That's the alma mater of Jim Boeheim for a webcast a live high school basketball game between Clyde Savannah and Lyons. And at halftime, Dave Barnick, who was announcing the game along with you, Burke, for Finger Lakes One Sports, sat down with a gentleman named Mike Decola, and he's a gentleman who grew up with Jim Boeheim, played Little League, Pony League baseball with Jim Boeheim, and played on those teams and played in that East Rochester game that Jim Boeheim always talks about. So we're going to play back that interview for you. It's about 5-6 minutes long. Dave Barnick along with Mike Decola of Lyons, a lifelong friend of Jim Boeheim. Okay, sorry. Apparently, there's some audio issues with that particular file. What I'll do for our viewers is I'll post it below this week's episode. So when you're done, you can check it out. And if you'd like to, if you're listening on iTunes, sorry, I'm not gonna be able to help you out there. But you can browse to podcast.fingerlakes1.com/upstate hoops. And look for this week's episode, and that video of that interview will be embedded there. And basically, Verkey was talking about, well, you were there. He was talking about playing baseball with Jim Boeheim and Boeheim's work ethic. Always had a basketball in his hand. Talked about the East Rochester game a little bit, and how that's still his biggest loss. But it to me, the interview kind of showed, where Boeheim kind of came from, that little gymnasium in Lyons. Now, he didn't play in the Atwood, but that gym certainly is historic. But it reminds me of Jim Boeheim went from Lyons, New York to, international, or at least national, recognizable, sports figure. And so, again, apologize for the technical difficulties. That was 1 for the road. That was easy. How about we go for 2 for the road? We need Georgia Tech and Florida State predictions from you guys. Verk.
This is, I was kind of thinking Georgia Tech was going to be somewhat of an easy win for us, hoping. But, they just went into Notre Dame, and I think that game went to 2 overtimes, and Notre Dame ended up pulling it out. So a little nervous. Notre Dame's been playing really well this year, and Tech has some. I was looking at their schedule. They have some nice wins this year. I'm going to say Syracuse wins that one 76-73.
76-73. How about you, Brad?
Similar to what Verk said, I think it's going to be too close for comfort probably, but I think Syracuse still pulls it out. I would say 66-62.
Okay. I got to go more along your guys' lines. But, it's funny you say Syracuse 66. Verk, your score, too, had them scoring more points against Georgia Tech on the road than they did against Cornell at home. I don't know what to think about this team. I think this Georgia Tech game's a 50-50 game. I really do. I mean, Virginia Tech, the ball was in the air. If it went in, we lose. Wide open three. And I kind of feel like the same thing's going to happen in Georgia Tech. It's going to go down to the wire on the road against a decent Georgia Tech team. Just because I'm hoping and praying that we get the win, I'm going to say Syracuse 53, Georgia Tech 52. And then as far as Florida State guys, I actually like Florida State at home a little, but our chances a lot better. I don't know if you guys feel the same. Florida State's struggling this year.
Yeah, I think that's I think Syracuse struggling a little bit too, but I think we win that game. I'm going to go double figures in that one. We win by 10, 67-57.
Okay, how about you, Brad? Florida State.
I think Syracuse wins that game, like you said, Jim, because they're playing at home. If it was down in Florida, I would not like their chances. But I do think Syracuse is a better team, but not by a whole lot. I would say Syracuse 58-55.
Wow, close one at home. Hey, why not? St. John's beat us by more than that at home. Yeah, my pick on that game, we're going to score a little bit more. I like a 76-63 final there for that one. But either way, if we can go 2-0 when we're sitting here next Sunday night, just moments after, hopefully they beat Florida State, I'm starting to feel a lot better about our chances, but I could easily see a situation where we split those games, lose at Georgia Tech, or even maybe beat Georgia Tech and fall asleep at home. You just never know with this team. Is it going to be the first half team against Virginia Tech? Is it going to be the second half team? Because it's a 180-degree difference, and so it's tough to predict anything about this team. And no game's a sure thing. And Boeheim said it during his press conferences all year. He goes, "This team is not, is not going to definitely beat anybody, whether it's Louisiana Tech or Duke."
Yeah, I'm not going to be. If we were to lose either of those games, I wouldn't be shocked at all. I mean, you give up a huge lead against Tech and
Blacksburg.
I think Tech and Florida State might both be a little bit better than Virginia Tech. So it's going to be a battle. We're going to have to play like we did in the first half against Virginia Tech, and I think we'll be all right.
And if we can go 2-0 this week, we got Wake Forest at home, and then at Clemson. I mean, this could be a winning streak again. This could be 5 in a row and kind of get us back into discussion for the top 25. And honestly, right now we're in first place in the ACC.
Yeah, hey.
So if we keep winning, we're going to – I guarantee if we win the rest of our games, we win the ACC. There's a bold prediction. So, Brad, any parting shots before we head out?
They need to get the offense moving more consistently. I hope we see it this week.
Yeah, I'm with that. How about you, Verk?
I'm going to go bold. I'm going to make a bold prediction.
Okay.
It's going to be a Chris McCullough comes back alive. He's going to have 15 points and 10 boards in one of those games.
Oh, I
Not sure which one, but
I get behind that. Yeah, you get away from, you go down south, away from the dome, away from everything against Georgia Tech, or maybe he gets back in the dome and just gets a little electric. The students are going to be back, which is nice. There's nothing worse in the Carrier Dome, if you ask me.
Well, they won't be back yet, though.
No, you're probably right. It'll be Florida State's the 11th. That'll be close. I wouldn't be surprised if the band's there.
Yeah.
But huge difference in atmosphere
Sure.
in the dome when the students aren't there. It's almost night and day, kind of like the Virginia Tech first half and second half. So Well, guys, thanks for hanging out on a Sunday night. Apologize for the technical difficulties that we had with that interview. And reminder, next week, 10:30 p.m., depending on that Syracuse-Florida State game. If it goes a little late, we might be a little later. If it goes a little earlier, we might be a little earlier. So thanks for joining us on the Upstate Orange podcast. You can subscribe to our feed on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, or via RSS. We're online at podcast.fingerlakes1.com/upstatehoops. We'll be back again live next Sunday night at 10:30 p.m. after the Syracuse-Florida State game. For the Professor Brad Connor, my co-host Matt Verkey, I'm Jim Sinacropi. Happy New Year, everybody, and let's go Orange.